Hello, this is Goomzilla, and today I'm going to show you how to make a Shy Guy. But since we already have a Shy Guy, this won't be any old guy. I'll be making the Shy Bandit. You'll need felt in the colours black, white, dark brown, light brown, yellow and red. You could use dark grey instead of black for the body pieces. You'll also need a needle and thread in colours black, white, light brown and yellow, but the last two aren't essential. A white pipe cleaner can be used for the straw, though if you have any straws at home you could also use those. You'll need scissors, nail scissors possibly, as I find these can be helpful for smaller pieces, pins and stuffing. When cutting out the lower arm, you might find it easier first to cut out the general shape and then use nail scissors to cut into the gap. We're going to start with making the bottom half of the Shy Guy and start by making the two shoes. You'll want to pin together two white halves. Starting in the corner, sew along just the shorter edge with a blanket stitch. Then start in the corner of the curved edge and sew up the curve and the small flat bit. Careful not to sew up the edge at the top or the bottom. The shoe will look like this. When you have both shoes done, you want to sew the soles on. Pin them on and sew around the edges to end up with the completed shoe. Flip the shoe the right way around, being careful as you don't want to damage the stitches. Repeat for the other shoe and you'll end up with the two matching boots. Next we're going to take the underskirt and bottom. First sew together the shorter edges of the underskirt. This will form a ring like this. Next attach it to the bottom with the stitches of the underskirt against the centre of one of the longer curves of the bottom, as this will be a good reference point for later sewing. I chose to sew all the way around, but on reflection I would not recommend doing this. Instead, I'd recommend only sewing halfway along, as later on we'll use that gap to turn the Shy Guy the right way round when it's fully sewn. Now you need to attach the shoes to the bottom. You'll first need to stuff the shoes and then pin them on to make sure they're in the right position before sewing. Treat the underskirt stitches as the back centre of the Shy Guy. The back of the shoes are about a finger length from the back. The shoes pinned on should look like this. You can angle the shoes outwards a bit if you like, or have them straight forward. Mine are angled, but you can do whatever you prefer. Ensuring the feet are as stuffed as you would like, sew them in with white thread. The neatness of these stitches isn't too important, as they shouldn't be too visible. When that's finished, it should look like this. And here we have the finished bottom half. Now it's time to start on the main body and the head. Take the two head pieces and pin them on top of each other. You'll need to sew across the long end, around the curve and down the small crevice. Make sure not to sew together the other two edges. You should be able to open the finished headpiece like this. Now take the two back pieces and first sew in the darts. Make sure you sew up the darts on the inside side of each piece, so they should be mirrored. Now pin the two back pieces together with the sewn sides of the darts on the outside and sew up just along the edge at the top. The back piece will look like this. Next, take the two front pieces, pin them together and sew up the little edges next to the large curve. Now sew the front and back pieces together. With all the stitches facing upright, you'll want to sew the short edges on the back piece to the short edges on the front. The upper body will all be sewn together in a ring like this. So now we sew the arms together. Take one upper and one under arm piece and pin them together. You'll notice that the smaller arm piece isn't quite as long as the large piece. After sewing them together, you'll want to turn them the right way around. You'll take the sewn together front and back piece and place each arm like this. You'll sew up the armhole, careful to keep a gap so that you can later fill the arm with stuffing. An easy way is to pin it like this, and you can see where to sew and where to leave space for the armhole gap. The body will look like this, and now you'll want to start on the headband. First you'll need to sew up the darts. You'll see that there is a longer side and a shorter side. The shorter side will be sewn to the head, so you'll want to match up the corners like this and sew. The head and the headband will be connected like this, and you'll want to sew each of the two remaining corners to the corners of the body. You'll see that the two semicircles will be joined together to form a large oval. It's time to sew on the face. Fold the face piece in half lengthways, and you can see where you'll need to pin it to the body. Use white thread to sew the face on. Afterwards, we'll turn the body the right way around, and it's time to put on the eyes and mouth. If you're making a normal Shy Guy, you'll want to put the eyes on so that the bottom of them is about halfway down the face and the mouth a bit lower in the centre. As I'm making the Shy Bandit, I'll be putting the eyes on the mask and they'll be a little further apart than on the face. With the eyes sewn onto the mask, I now need to sew the mask and mouth onto the face. For the mask, I'm not going to sew over any of the red felt. I'm just going to sew through the body and over the same stitches around the eyes, as this will look neater. The face should look like this when it's done. I think the mask looks better not sewn down onto the face, but you could do it that way if you'd prefer. Now we need to attach the skirt, first by sewing up the two shorter edges. Then sew on one of the longer sides to the bottom of the Shy Guy, aligning the stitches. The inside will now look like this, so take the bottom, inside out, and sew it to the bottom of the skirt, with the two lines of stitches aligned. Make sure the shoes are tucked inside of the body. If you've already left the gap in the bottom, you can just sew all the way around here. Now, we can see that the Shy Guy doesn't look quite right, and that's because we haven't created a layered skirt look yet. You'll want to put a stitch here by folding and sticking the skirt outside. We're going to fold it over so it's like this and put a few stitches around. 2 should be enough, but you can do 4 for extra security. You should cast on and off under the skirt so that the stitches aren't as visible. After the skirt is sewn down, it's time to stuff it. Now you want to sew up the remaining gap. The gap I've left is in a bit of a difficult location to sew up, so that's why I've suggested leaving the gap between the bottom and the underskirt piece instead. I'd recommend using a ladder stitch. Now that he's all sewn up, he just needs his belt. Take the belt and buckle and sew one of the shorter ends of the belt to one of the shorter ends of the buckle using blanket stitches. Now take either your straw or the pipe cleaner that you're using as a straw. I'd recommend having it the length from the top of the arm to the bottom of the skirt, but you can choose how long you'd like it. Cut it and make a bend and sew it to the Shy Guy. I put the straw partway between the armpit and the end of the arm and secured it with about 5 white stitches. So here I have my finished Shy Bandit. Overall, I'm quite happy with how this turned out. The only annoying bit was trying to sew the last gap up. That's why I've recommended you to not do what I did in this video, from where to be the last place to sew up the Shy Guy. Thank you for watching. I hope you've enjoyed this tutorial. If you decide to make any Shy Guys, or any of our other plushes for that matter, either post a video onto YouTube of your plushes, or a picture or video onto Instagram and tag us in it. You'll never take me alive.